Hello and welcome to the Captain's Table, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Berserker01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the Astro Pub, your space bar at the end of Twitch, your professor on the Astro Historian, and your humble host and moderator here on the Captain's Table. This is a live stream podcast that I do both on Twitch and YouTube. You can watch us live at youtube.com/theastropub and watch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/theastropub. And yeah, this is going to be probably the first one that will be listed on the new YouTube, which is already up there, the youtube.com/@the-captain's-table-podcast. So make sure you're subscribed there. If you're watching this already there, make sure you check subscribe. So grow that over there so that everyone can kind of enjoy that. So yeah, thank you for joining us here today. Today, joining me is HC Vertigo and Build and Play. And let's start with you, Build and Play. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. Good day, all. I am Build and Play, or Bob. I've been playing since about 2020 or 2021, and I'm mostly interested in passenger transport gameplay. I'm currently a tour guide and bartender for Qantas Starlines, which is one of the only, if not the only, active touring and passenger transport organization. And I host a lot of tours, such as lore tours and discovery tours, and also some shuttle running soon throughout Pyro. With that organization, you can find me on basically any social media at buildandplay_, and you can find Qantas at qantas.space, or on about every social media at Qantas Starlines.
Awesome. And then we've got I guess. Are you going to be the Sultan of Salt for Stanton, the Stanton Sultan of Salt, and the Pyro Sultan of Salt? Are you going to be both?
I don't know. I figure I'm not going to be doing much in Pyro, on Twitch, because
you just don't want to get
ganked constantly. Yeah. I remember Asmongold was playing one of the new PvP MMOs that came out, and he was getting constantly attacked all over the place. And he was like, I can't do this on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure of the future of Pyro, though.
Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
I am HC Vertigo here on Twitch. I used to be a dedicated Star Citizen streamer, but then I kind of moved more variety. We've been enjoying Satisfactory recently. We've been enjoying Helldivers, enjoying Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. Great game, great atmosphere vibe, but highly recommend it, especially now that they got some new patches out, fix with release. I do plan to be going back into 4.0 here a little bit, maybe Monday, because they put it out to everybody on the EPTU. It's not live, Chris. I don't care how many times you say it's live. It's not. It's if you have a choice to roll back, if the user has a choice to roll back to the previous live patch on the launcher, it's not live. I like to give him a ration of shit over that, because the letter from the chairman came out and he's like, oh yeah, we pushed 4.0 out to the
preview
this preview channel.
Yeah.
It's now live. I'm like, no, it's not. But I do appreciate they give them the option to pick or choose which version you want to play on for the holiday. Because obviously CIG, they're slowing down right now because everyone's taking their breaks. You got Christmas coming up. If you celebrate, you got New Year's coming up, and obviously this is a time of year when everybody wants to spend time with family. Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's time to get together with your friends and family, because everyone else is. And you got New Year's coming up as well. So you might as well not commit too hard to 4.0. I hear a lot of people have been having problems. But anyways, you can find me on YouTube as well. I'm uploading shorts over there for whatever shenanigans are happening. As same handle on YouTube as it is here on Twitch, AC Vertigo. You can also find me on Blue Sky, AC Vertigo on Blue Sky, Instagram as well. Just trying to make people's lives a little bit better by uploading stuff that's kind of funny, stuff you can laugh at, stuff you can enjoy.
I have to, in the new year, hold on. I have to turn on the bot. The bot is not turned on properly.
Oh, no, not the bot.
Yeah, the bot is currently turned off. We gotta entice it. We gotta tickle it a little bit to make it turned on. All right. Start. All right, there we go. There you go. Starts up. Perfect. Start invoked beginning. Sorry. So for those who don't know, we do have a bot that will answer questions. Or not answer questions. Well, if you ask a question on either YouTube or Twitch, it will gather that question for us to answer later in what we've dubbed the After Dark section, because it can get pretty spicy in the After Dark. Less scripted, more from the pants, because some questions can get wild.
From the pants.
Yeah.
Seat of our pants.
Yes, that's why it's called, After
Assuming you
Dark.
wear pants,
Right.
I mean, you don't really have to wear pants on Twitch, especially if you're doing what Build and Play does over here.
Yeah,
where he doesn't have his camera on.
Well, he could have his camera on. You just wouldn't know below. The joke is that nobody knows that I'm just a floating torso. No one's actually seen me in person. I'm just a floating torso.
He's actually made by Disney. He's just an animatronic.
I'm a really lifelike animatronic. All right. Speaking of 4.0, to show you how my brain was dead, I initially created this as looking forward to 2025, and then somehow I thought we're doing a 2024 year in review. And then Build and Play reminded me, he's like, no, I signed up because you were going to say 2025, you looking forward. I was like,
looking forward, yeah.
Right, I did say that. I'm an idiot. My brain has been so thoroughly fricasseed. So this is a looking forward to 2025. But let's get started with a bit of a recap of the year. So Vertigo, starting with you, just general vibe. Good or bad year for 2024 for Star Citizen?
Overall, I think we've made some good progress this year. Obviously, server meshing's coming out at the very end here. That's a big maypole feature that CIG's been dancing around for a very long time. We got the Polaris come out. That's the darling of Star Citizen. A lot of people have been waiting for that stupid thing for a long time. We got new character customizer, another long-time feature we've been wanting was more hairstyles, especially more Afrocentric hairstyles, piercings, tattoos, beards. People wanting more character customization options for a long time now. Obviously more ships. Pulse came out not long ago, and the Pulse fits into everything. And that's something that everybody wanted, just a little ground vehicle you can just putter around in. That fits in just about every ship you can imagine. Even some ships it probably shouldn't fit into.
You can fit in an Aurora.
Yeah, like I said, some ships you probably shouldn't be able to fit into. It fits into. So yeah, and obviously we had some bad stuff that people complain about, like Master Mode. A lot of people don't like Master Modes. Very controversial feature. Some of the FPS stuff that's going on, some of the web store stuff that's going on. CIG feels like they're kind of wringing us a little bit tighter this year for money. CitizenCon, obviously a lot of hype for CitizenCon, so it kind of contributes to the positive vibes. People saw what looking forward from CitizenCon for this year, and plus the stuff they made for last year that actually we got this year, 2023, we got in 2024, and then people are seeing the 2024 stuff and they're looking forward to 2025. Base building, crafting. So there's definitely a lot of hype. There's a lot of hope there. We've moved the needle. I think a lot of the saltiness comes from people just kind of being sour, just soaking in that brine for too long, right? It just kind of makes you extra super pickled, right? You're just too much. Some people just been with the project for too long, and that's kind of why I've been going to variety stuff, because there's so much other stuff out there to enjoy. No Man's Sky is getting more free expansions. New games are coming out. Helldivers 2, enjoyed that thing this year. Great game. Satisfactory, great game, got released this year. Plenty of new releases to look forward to. Project Wingman got a DLC out of goddamn nowhere. One of my favorite one of my favorite games that released 4 years ago got a DLC, and I realized, someone tweeted about it on Blue Sky. Do you even call it a tweet on Blue Sky?
They're called Skeets.
Skeets. Someone posted about it on Blue Sky. And I'm like, I did a double take. I'm like, just what?
What? Yeah,
Project Wingman got a DLC 4 years later, and I suddenly find out about it. And the soundtrack is still on fire. Not Pedro, who did it? It's Jose Pavley.
Of course,
he did a great job.
Yeah, Jose Pavley.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I know a couple of the voice actors who were in Project Wingman because they got their start with Project Wingman, and they're content creators who started voice acting. That was their first game.
I honestly, now that you say it, I believe you, because there's the voice acting in Project Wingman goes all over the place. Like,
Yes.
sometimes it's just just fire. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, ham it up.
Yes.
And other times it's like, that's the take they went with.
Well, it was also famously, it's also another Kickstarter game. It was a game that I kickstarted.
Kickstarter success.
Yeah, a huge success, and done because the Project Aces has been slacking very much recently. I think it was released before A7 came out. So
yeah, it was released before Ace Combat 7.
Because
everybody was like coping about it. It's like, yay, we have this we have not Ace Combat before Ace Combat gets an official release.
Yeah, because they didn't actually release an Ace Combat to computer ever. I think 7 was the first computer that
I think you're right.
They released when it came out as well. And it's important to talk about because, you know, both Kickstarter and also lots of other things that have been going on. And I always compare a lot of Star Citizen, especially Squadron 42, with Ace Combat because they have very similar, like Wing Commander and Ace Combat have similar DNA in that they're very hyper realistic, or not hyper realistic, hyper
arcadey. They're very much an arcade.
But it's like
your ship has thousands of missiles on it.
Yeah, but you're like the emphasis is on like the crazy over the top story.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know,
you're using the gigantic, 10-story tall railgun to shoot down this massive battleship air cruiser.
Yeah.
Over like this space elevator, so that you can assault the other gigantic battleship air cruiser.
Yeah.
That has all these drones that it just detaches from it and shoots lasers at you, and it's just like what the hell is happening here? And this soundtrack is amazing.
It's going on. It's on fire. You're an ex-criminal turned good guy who accidentally killed the president. Like it's, and then you can sometimes strap a railgun to your F-35, you know, and go kill things.
And then the DLC has this underwater aircraft carrier that could like shoot nukes with railguns, and your objective is to like shoot a missile into like the hangar of the battleship aircraft submarine carrier thing to sink it. And the voice acting in that DLC was amazing.
So
like the main bad guy was just hamming it up, and I loved it.
We're way off topic, but this is on par for an HG Vertigo Captain's Table. So
yes, we are so far off topic.
Build and play
things I love, not Star Citizen right now.
Build and play. Your thoughts on the year 2024? Just general vibes. Was it good, bad?
I mean, first of all, I think that the year was kind of not great. If you look at the funding, of course, it's lower than last year. The amount
they
of
still
new players,
made $100 million. That's
I mean,
still
true,
pretty good, right?
Of course, but it's still lower, and especially the amount of newer accounts compared to last year. Last year we saw spikes from like the Asmongold video, for example, that got like 40,000 new accounts in like a single day, and now it's been this year that kind of stuff hasn't really happened. However, I feel like the year was actually pretty good progress-wise. We saw a lot of new, like, good features, a lot of really good reworks, like the Moby Glass, like the Star Map, Arena Commander becoming something that's actually fun. And before, I really didn't enjoy Arena Commander, and now I just notice that I sometimes just play Arena Commander for fun. Yeah. I just play Gun Rush because it's actually fun. The weapons rework is great. And of course, server meshing and how they did the entire tech preview testing, in my opinion, was really a great experience because I loved joining every single test session, even though it was at crazy late times at night for me. It was, really cool to actually feel like you were helping the development by testing stuff. However, I do also understand why, for a lot of people, it's been a bit of a salty year, especially because like every single patch that released, it feels like every patch release was not like a 3.18, but it wasn't great. Every patch has been pretty. There have been quite a bit of issues with like almost every patch release this year. There haven't been that many ships until the end of the year, so like the year felt a bit content dry before the end, really. Also because there were just 2 patches in the entire year, really. Because, as Vertigo said, 4.0 isn't live, Chris. It's not live. This doesn't count. It's just been 23 and 24 this year. So only 2 patches.
Like I appreciate the choice between the 2 live versions, but like they go around and like, oh yeah, it's live. Like, no, it's not.
No, and
it's
right
still
now,
a preview channel.
It's live
actually
in the,
unplayable.
I think it's live. I'd argue that it's live in the two reasons why it's important that it's in live, which is one, progression will continue on from 4.0.
Yeah, no
preview.
wipes.
There's no wipes.
So whatever progress you make in 4.0, you're gonna keep when 4.0 finally is the only patch you can play.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's on the live servers, because they weren't going to get the concurrency in the PTU that they needed to for 4.0, because they wouldn't find out what's broken. And they've already found out what's broken because of the concurrency in 4.0 preview. So they needed that concurrency testing so that they could get that information so they could fix it. It's just problematic because they got that concurrency the day of their last day of like the day before their last day at work. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
But
Today,
the question I think that a lot of players will also say is like, can I, if I make reputation money in 4.0 preview, will continue in 4.0? And people will say yes, then most people are saying that it's live. Like, I think that's, people are pretty simple with that sort of thing. But yeah, I get it. So, but overall, you said overall it's just more like it's kind of like a year for you.
yeah, I would say it's. I mean, I'm personally quite happy with, if I compare to the start of this year, especially to the last few years. I feel like there's just a lot of good progress, and I love Pyro, and server meshing with the amount of players is great and working pretty well. So in general, I'm pretty happy, but I do understand why a lot of the community isn't as happy. Of course, master modes as well. I forgot to mention there has been a lot of controversy and stuff around that, especially from the PvP community. But me personally, that doesn't affect me too much because I'm not that much of a PvP focused player. I do keep it in mind, but it's not my focus. So I'm not too pissed about it.
I'm gonna go on with some rare salt, and I think this year was a bad year for the game. I think it was a good year in terms of development, bad year for the game. Good year because they got a lot of stuff they needed to get in technically. They got the new character creator in. They got the new hairstyles. They got the new HUD overlays completely finished. The new star map. They got the master modes. Setting that broken bone or whatever. Just ripping that band-aid off. They got the cargo stuff in. The cargo is my play loop, and they it's good. It's good. I like it. Please, more of this, please. And there's a lot of gameplay that was added that wasn't specifically, that was typical. Like, instead of getting events, we got the overdrive event, and we got.
Can you remember what the overdrive event was about? I couldn't.
I
had to look it up.
It was about the story of it. It was about the Nine Tails. It was the Xenothreat. It was about Xenothreat. It was the siege.
See, he messed it up, folks. He can't even keep it straight.
I get those two mixed up all the time.
Xenothreat Nine Tails.
It was a Xenothreat invasion incursion. It was the preview for the new Xenothreat that was awful. So, but like that I liked Overdrive. Didn't like the new Xenothreat event, but I liked Overdrive. And I'm okay with Save Stanton, but like those two things which are important because they got them tested, and going forward, they even said that they want to kind of do that. So there's good development things, but I think the major problem, which I'm not going to harp on too much because Chris did mention it in his letter from the chairman, is basically they only released a patch and a half. They released 1.5 patches for an entire year. After a year that they released 5. But 4 of those patches were released in between September and December of last year. So like CIG has often done this, and this is the year that I think is the most egregious of CIG completely wasting all of their goodwill and their momentum going into a new year. Like they'll build up, they'll do nothing between January and May, and then it feels like they just sort of go, oh, we've got a sale, what can we do? And they just throw a bunch of stuff out there so that they can get something out before Invictus, so that they have a justification to sell the ships. And then after Invictus is done, they do nothing over summer, and then they panic because CitizenCon's going to come, and so they have to make up a bunch of things they can do for CitizenCon and for IAE and the end of the year. And like, it feels like they're kind of just slapdashing it. I know they're not, but the perception is reality. Is the problem? Is that what someone thinks is going on is what they will act on is what's going on. So when it comes to like, especially with video games, so like that's what the image they're giving to the world. I know it's more. They're building a lot of stuff in the back end. There's a lot of other things that are going on. Squad 42 is still the focus, but it doesn't matter because what the players see is burned like half a patch that was supposed to come out in May being split into 2 and then one coming out in May. And then they said, don't worry, it's only be a couple of weeks. And then the second half of that patch didn't come out for 3 months.
3 months.
So
I'm fine with that sort of thing. Hell, I'd say like CIG, give us like 2 patches.
If it's
like,
big,
if we could, if you can actually like guarantee like there's stuff that's going to be in there, but
go for it. But I mean, the thing is that what they're doing in the next year, and this can kind of lead into the next year a little bit, with the letter for the chairman, is they're no longer coupling features to patches, which is what they needed to stop doing a while ago. Like 4.0 is bad because they said 4.0 had to have server meshing and pyro.
They it's so frustrating to watch this, not just as like a content creator, as a fan, as someone who's followed Star Citizen for a very long time, because it feels like they've lost like their indigenous like shaman, like that oral history that gets passed down. Hey, remember 3.0 where 3.0 was like planets?
Mm-hmm.
And they had like you had 2.63, 2.6, which came at the start of like 2017.
Yeah,
and then you had no other major patches until like 3.0 at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of thing that CIG was having problems with. Like 3.18 did the same thing. I can't remember what 3.18 was about.
It was originally
had a major.
It was the back end refactor. So like everything
back end
was
refactor. Big. It was like what was it? What do they call that? Q server or something.
Oh, P-cache versus Q-cache, or
Q-cache, P-cache, whatever that was. That was kind of the big
I-cache versus P-cache. Yeah, it went from I-cache.
But you're gonna
to
have
P-cache.
that. You're gonna have like where you end up painting yourself into a corner with a big feature, where suddenly you have this big feature you're working on, and it matures enough in development that suddenly you need to change everybody over to this new feature. So all your workflow has to take this feature into account because it's coming soon. And guess what? Because all your new stuff, all your devs are working on this new feature. Everybody's working around this new feature. All your old stuff is legacy, right? You can't support any of that old stuff anymore. So now, what do you do with the old patches, right? What do you do with that? You got everybody let it sit and spin, right? Until the new feature gets mature enough that you give it to the people. And Star Citizen is not the only company that suffers from that, where you have this legacy feature that is like the linchpin, the cornerstone of whatever you're doing, and you need to get rid of it somehow. So you have to basically do a complete rewrite. And while you're doing that rewrite to support this new feature, like you can't put out any new patches. You could do kind of like hot fixes and whatnot, but any new features that have to be pushed out, you gotta wait for the new feature. So that's 3.18, 3.0, 4.0. It's gonna happen. But now that server meshing's like finished, I'm assuming CIG. This is what I was looking forward to for 4.0. We can kind of look forward a little bit to the actual topic we're talking about here. Is that now that 4.0 server meshing, the big maypole feature that we've been promised all this time, is kind of complete. CIG, there's really nothing big left for CIG, right?
I'm gonna preempt you because there's going to be this thing that people will say. But what about dynamic server meshing or the backend servers or the backend?
Yeah, we don't know how big dynamic server meshing is, and dynamic server meshing is just the juggling, right, of servers.
It's not how it does not change fundamentally how the game talks to itself. How servers like DGSs talk with the shard or the backend. All the dynamic,
how it talks with P-cache, Q-cache, the big old server,
the hybrid service
persistence,
that they have in the background, the replication layers. It doesn't change that. That's all in static meshing, and then all that dynamic meshing is doing is changing where the servers are located specifically, and then also how many servers can be per shard. Those are the
It's really just a communication problem at that point, trying to get the right service to talk to the right server
it's
at the right
optimization.
time.
What you're just seeing
and
is
layering servers as well.
Yeah, it's
like on top of each other.
It's optimizations. It's not really a like a complete fundamental thing of like how things function. And even the back end, like the dynamic economy stuff that they want to do, that's already in the game. it works for fuel and repair. It runs off of the star sim.
There's just not enough systems to really make you notice it. They have to kind of keep everything kind of subdued.
Yeah,
so you can actually play the game.
And eventually, when it comes in and gets tied into the mission system, it will be a big deal. But it's not changing how missions function. Yeah. It's not like something that's so big that, like, technically speaking, nothing can be done until that's done. They can still build missions and they can still do all the content and features that with the game. So as a result, this is like the last big hurdle for CIG before they can start to take what they have in terms of the foundation and make it something that they want to make it as with 1.0. So
I think scalability might still be an issue, though, if we look in longer term and they will have like thousands of players on one shard. I mean, we're not sure yet how the scalability is going to work, because
every MMO ever existed has always had a problem with that.
Yeah,
scalability.
Exactly,
how many players can you shove in there next to each other? MMOs that have like text-based prompts and whatnot. I don't know many of MMOs that are just pure text-based. They can get away with more. EVE Online has the ability to throttle their simulation rate.
Yeah,
they can basically they slow the game down to account for all the latency issues you get with like thousands of players like in the same area. So a cooldown that takes 30 seconds to refresh when you get 1,000 peoples may take 5 minutes to refresh real time.
Yeah.
For you sitting at your computer. So you may end up getting, you click a button, you get up, make yourself a cup of coffee, come back, and you're still waiting on your cooldowns after you made that cup of coffee. And so you go browse Reddit, listen to a few podcasts, and occasionally you're clicking on buttons. It becomes more like Farmville than actually online. But we can't do that in Star Citizen. So obviously, if Chris Roberts wants to have real-time interactions that are meaningful, they're going to have some serious problems with bandwidth and latency.
Yep, which is the reason why there's going to be a lot of discussions. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I will say overall this year was good for technology, bad for perception of Star Citizen's current state, even for the team. I think going forward, and I'll start off with this one pretty easily. Going forward, the big thing I think that CIG can do to improve their reputation, and also what Chris Roberts has basically said, is hit a cadence. March comes out, there is a patch out, and there is stuff to do in that patch. Oh, but what about, scanning didn't make it or engineering didn't make it for 4.1. Cool. We don't need to worry about it. It'll come in 4.1.1 or maybe 4.2. Who cares? We'll just keep testing it and make sure it works. Let's not lock anything behind this big wall. Bounty hunting 2.0 comes out, or it comes out when it comes out. They need other things to get forward or whatever. So having missions, having ships, having the things they can get out when they can get out, pushing it out there and not worrying about attaching a feature to a specific release other than, say, 1.0, that will improve their reputation. Because if you can keep up the momentum of new patch releases with content and give a reason for people to sign in, if you give a reason people to sign in and play, that means you're going to make more money. And it also make people less salty because there's always something for people to do. Save Stanton barely works sometimes, but there are still people who hadn't played Star Citizen in 6 months who came back because Save Stanton gave them guns.
Yeah, gave them something.
Something.
And I
to
think
do.
that's a good idea. It's you give other than like a Spectrum badge or something. Give in-game rewards, even if it's just like a reskin, like a different geometry reskin of like something that already exists in Star Citizen. It's this gun, but it's a different color. That's fine.
People were like no-lifed Xenothreat when you could get the Xenothreat armor. People were just like, not Xenothreat armor, the CDF armor.
CDF, yeah.
I did that too. I did it for both my accounts.
Same here, yeah.
like you just
though the CDF armor was kind of disappointing, but that's another thing entirely.
It's kind of ugly, but
well, it looks almost exactly like stuff you can get in the game.
It's just with a little patch on it. That's all it is.
It has a little badge on the armor chest piece. That's it.
It needs to be that should have been the full chest piece, CDF logo, and I think people would have been a little bit more because it's more like, hey, I'm CDF, But so it's mostly the cadence. It's because cadence, in my opinion, didn't hit the cadence. But they're already in the right direction where they already said, we understand the cadence is wrong. We need to start improving our cadence and not start tying these features and stuff like that. So Initial responses. I'll start with you, Bill, since I started with Vertigo last time. Your thoughts on the immediate future of Star Citizen in, say, January through March, between the current release of 4.0 and whatever release comes out in March. What is the future looking? Bright, bad? What do you see coming out in that time?
I feel like the next few months will be pretty good, especially since the game is probably going to get a bit more stable. 4.0 will actually go to live. Hopefully we'll get there are already some new missions, of course. You have the missions that are kind of like Citizens of Prosperity against headhunters, which are actually kind of fun to engage in already if they function. And other missions as well, like the location repair that's not yet in the game. They still have it on tentative for 4.0, so we'll see. So I feel like those months will be pretty good. I think 4.1 is also going to be somewhat big again. Maybe even some parts that they left out of 4.0 they will bring back in. Maybe they will bring the Valakar into Arena Commander or the game itself. So yeah, I think the next few months are going to be good, especially since so many people will be coming back. I feel like the next few weeks, though, until CIG gets back into office, will be somewhat rough.
Vertigo, your same thoughts between January and March, post break when they come back. What's it like?
They do their planning stuff from January for the first couple of months, so I'm not expecting a lot of major stuff going on. Maybe they'll add some new stability and that kind of stuff. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. Now we're just going to kind of knuckle down and make Star Citizen better, more stable. We don't have to worry about these gigantic features upsetting development anymore. Our developer branches are not going to be vastly experimental in what technologies they have to support.
You're saying R, and I'm going to clarify this because this always confuses people on YouTube. Vertigo doesn't work for CIG. He's using this in terms of like community wise. He's using it in terms of the community being part of the process of development.
We are part of the development. We fund development and we give feedback on development.
Yeah. So
we participate, whether you like it or not. We do more the community does more participation for Star Citizen development than any other community does.
Yeah.
Usually like Battlefield, you only get it to like it's in beta or something, and then you give feedback, and then it gets pushed out for like $60. We're paying money right now.
Very few MMOs do what Star Citizen is doing in terms of how much the community is involved in it. It's usually more like a couple of beta tests here and there before live, not like please tell us exactly what we need to do to fix our problems. So, but yeah, anything else? Sorry to interrupt you. Make sure.
Anything else? So for like the next
3 months,
first quarter of 2026, or 2025, I should say, first quarter 2025. I'm not expecting a lot. I'm expecting like bug fixes, some patches to fix up some stuff, maybe some new ships. Nothing really major. Maybe another big event. Global mission chain for CIG to like theme the patch around, kind of similar to Xenothreat, Project Overdrive, Siege of Orison. So, I'm hoping for that kind of stuff. Really, I can't imagine what big piece of technology CIG could put in there. Definitely not 1.0 next year for the first 3 months or the entire year. 1.0 is not the next patch, people. If you think 1.0 is the next patch, you don't know.
No.
My call. I'm going to call this right now. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I've been making bold predictions the last couple of episodes. I'm making another bold prediction. Bold prediction is I think CIG is going to run Siege of Orison for next year in like between now and 4.1.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a test of how to do dedicated, how they can create a dedicated event server.
Right, those battle instances.
Yeah.
You can have like a shard by itself that just hosts an event.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's sort of like an instanced event. I wouldn't be surprised if they do some sort of testing of doing a dedicated, some version of that because it already
they were threatening to do that for CitizenCon this year, where they said they were going to have like those dark zones under Area 18 where you go down. You're going to just be by yourself with like a group of people.
Yeah.
They already have the technology sitting around to do that right now with the persistence hangar.
The hangars are instanced, so all they have to do is take that technology and apply it to a game server. So I think, and I think that
during
good.
Sorry, during the 1.0 visuals, they also showed the that they wanted to do fleet instance fleet battles
In
So
Nyx, yeah.
yeah,
So
that wouldn't surprise me either to be somewhat soon-ish testing at least.
So I think they just take one of their events and they run it with an instance DGS on a shard where like only a certain number of people can get in and that's it, and so they can run it. And I know Elliot has been chomping at the bit to get his baby with a dedicated server, which is for those you don't know, Elliot Maltby literally built Siege of Orison. That was his mission. So the reason why it's broken is because he built it. To harp on him a little bit more, but no, he's always, but he's been saying that he's really wanting to see the server meshing technology.
I mean, I could see it. I could see them adding a jump point to a Xenothreat instance in Stanton. You go to this place, this unstable jump point opens up, and it takes you to like fight Xenothreat Idris.
Yeah, something like that. I could definitely see something like that.
But you have to have like, a pass key in your inventory or something to open up the jump. Only people with pass keys in their inventory can actually use the jump.
Or you have to loot the jump module from the Xenothreat contested zones.
Yes. Yeah. Some sort of, you have to find some
server
sort
blades.
of means. Yeah. So you have to find some sort of key or some sort of things. Like I can see with like say Siege of Orison, I could see them being like, you get an invite and you have to like go collect your gear or your some sort of module that you can bring with you, and then once you do that, you get moved into an instance where you can go fight and then come back out of that instance and sort of.
And you know what, Paul? Like we're talking about this. This isn't like something I'm theory crafting like will happen within the next 5 years. This is something I feel in my. This is something I feel in my heart that could happen literally within the next year. Like the technology, everything we're talking about literally exists in the game right now.
Not only does it literally exist in the game right now, but 4.0 literally has some of these aspects, like keys that unlock special content. That's the contested zones. It's literally how it works. So, yeah, I think that's probably the next step. Is this next year is going to be a year of experimentation, and not just experimentation, but I think experimentation and growth for the teams that currently exist at CIG. Mission teams are going to get a lot more stuff done. The content teams are going to get a lot more stuff done. We're going to start seeing a lot more gameplay features to be played with. Probably a lot of stuff on master modes is going to be iterated on. I pray and hope that Arena Commander gets its team back, because up till now, the Arena Commander team this year was basically put onto other topics, like other games, other parts of the game. Yeah. So I really hope they get it back.
42.
Yes, Star Citizen stuff. They were helping out with 4.0 stuff. So if they could get pushed back to Arena Commander and do some more Arena Commander stuff, I think that Arena Commander is going to be one of those big things going forward in 2025 and beyond. That's really going to make the game more appealing, because
I am torn on Arena Commander going forward, and I used to enjoy Arena Commander a lot back in the day, but it's been, I swear to God, only 20 people play Arena.
That's what I mean.
At that point, you just need to shut it off. Like, it's pointless. People play the persistent. It's Concord levels of players. Like, Concord was shut down with like 100 congruent players.
But the thing is that if they allow, that's because it's just it's not finished yet. It's not been allowed to get unique features. Like, if you could have more instance combat where you could have control over who you're fighting with, and like, I know I'd play it a lot more if I had co-op PvE horde
mode would be great. Like, just take one of the pyro contested zones, what do they call them right now, one of the dark zones in pyro, and just make that its own little horde mode shooter that you go through. You can basically practice doing one of those runs.
Practice one of those runs. You can take any of the events that like Siege of Orison and put it into Arena Commander and let players play or Siege of Orison at any time. Those kind of things would be nice. So
and please, Theaters of War, CIG.
You already have Theaters of War. It's in Pyro.
Right, okay, but
Pyro is your Theaters of War.
So
it's not the same.
We don't. Okay, here's another thing I have a problem with, like Arena Commander. We don't need more distractions for the player base. Like, Battlefield had this problem back when they were releasing a bunch of X packs for paid money. Battlefield 4, I think it was Battlefield 4. Battlefield 3 and 4 suffered a problem. They would release an expansion that would have a whole bunch of new guns and map packs in it, and the only way to have the map was to buy the expansion. And if you had a community you played with, you'd inevitably have some people who didn't buy the expansion that would be up next on the rotation for the server. And so you just you'd have like a third of your parties, a third of your server just quit because they couldn't load that map. And everybody be complaining about that shit. And I have that problem with Star Citizen is like you're spreading yourself really thin with like Theaters of War. You're trying to replicate what you should be trying to encourage within the persistent universe.
That is true.
Right?
That's true.
With Theaters of War. Like you should be like whatever's happening with Theaters of War, that should be either like you should get rid of like Star Marine and then replace that with Theaters of War because Star Marine's kind of pointless and get like a horde mode there instead.
Well, they're getting rid of everything. It's all Arena Commander now. And I do think that the end goal of Arena Commander should be a free-to-play mode. It should be a free-to-play version of Star Citizen that you can enjoy or...
year-round free-to-play mode. You just sign up for an account, you can download Star Citizen, you can do free-to-play stuff.
And you play Arena Commander, and you can learn how to do those things. The only problem is that since Arena Commander is just Star Citizen, people would inevitably be able to make a lot of hacks for Star Citizen by just using Arena Commander.
Is that a bad thing, really? Like, keep all the hacks contained to Arena Commander?
Well, because then they can
reports about that, and then CIG can try to fix that shit. Well, you're going to have hacks regardless of Arena Commander being free to play or not.
Night City.
So, but like
also Vertigo. I fully agree with you on the Theaters of War thing, especially with the vision they have for the planetary shields for the outposts and Pyro and Nyx and other unlawful systems. That is largely very similar to what Theaters of War was during the showcase, where you have to capture the space station and then go down to the ground and do an assault with vehicles. So I fully agree. If CIG actually manages to implement that and decides to focus on implementing that instead of making Theaters of War, I fully agree. They should focus on the game.
I do think that the advantage of it, and long term, this is also another thing that I think would be good, is having custom game modes. Maybe lock that behind an account you have to pay for, but if you can do custom game modes in Arena Commander to allow people to develop their own mission ops so that they can kind of like
I have to disagree with you, Paul. I think we're moving too far away about what the core of Star Citizen should be focused on, which is the...
No, I get it. I understand that. But I also think that there's so much, especially as they add things like Death of a Spaceman, that's going to add so much more danger to playing anything that a lot of people are going to want to have a place where they can practice without having the consequences of death mattering. I'm not talking about like custom game modes as being something that's like tomorrow, more of a long-term thing. But I do hope that we do end up next year start to see more refocus of some of that team that was hired specifically to make Arena Commander, from Firesprite. I want them to be able to do the thing they were hired to do. So, because
assuming they still work there, considering all the rumors of layoffs.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's another thing we can look forward to. More layoffs from CIG.
That is almost certain.
Next year.
That is almost certain. We're going to see a large number of layoffs, but that's also just the nature of video games these days. I don't think there's a single studio, even good studios, that haven't laid off a number of people. So, all right. So let's go a little bit further than that. The next 6 months. So, quarter two. Between
that's going to be the Invictus patch.
Yeah. So so Vertigo, what do you think is going to be? What kind of thing are we going to get between now and then for like the Invictus?
I think around that time we probably see a lot more progress on the Perseus, because I think that's in white box right now, rumored to be in production. Definitely like another large ship, capital ship, been accepted before. Obviously more ships, more combat ships for the concept, either flight ready concept. I really don't think we're going to see another star system. We're not going to see another star system pushed to live, because they did the 5 right for CitizenCon this year, which was Castor,
Nyx, Terra.
Castor, Nyx, Pyro, Stan, and can't remember the 5th one. Terra, I think it was. Was it Terra?
Yeah.
Terra's not going to be. Terra's going to be one of the last systems they're going to work on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or if Chris Roberts does a massive line of coke, it'll be the first one they decide to work on.
Well, we already know the list.
Terra's going to be about as complicated as a Stan, quite honestly.
Just
Terra's more complicated.
Just Terra the planet is more complicated than the entirety of Stanton. There are like,
and don't forget, there's 2 habitable planets there with multiple cities on both.
Yeah.
So if CIG wants to play it safe, like let's just get Castor and Nyx out of the way, right? After Pyro. That way we can get more stuff. Because they could just hit procedural generation on the moons and planets, because that was something they showed off at CitizenCon with like their the new
Genesis
architect and stuff.
Yes.
Genesis system. Yeah. But the problem with that is that you look at the CitizenCon footage and you see a lot of terrestrial Earth style plants and environments, which leads me to think that maybe they are getting ready for Terra, because Terra being terraformed
I think
Earth standards with Earth plants.
Well, it's
biology.
It's naturally habitable. It wasn't terraformed, but like it should look like Earth because it was naturally habitable. It's the whole narrative of this game.
But they had a lot of Earth style plants showed off.
Yeah, that's because they want to make I think they want to ground people in what they know. Yeah. So
don't get too crazy.
Yeah,
with those orange trees and red leaves.
Yes. None of this. You live in the northeast sort of.
Heaven forbid it's a sci-fi game, Chris Roberts, with like aliens in it, which also we're not going to see next year. We're not going to see any Banu. We're not going to see any Jean. We're not going to see any maybe they'll squeak
we might
in.
See Vandal. We might see Vandal.
Some Vandal because they'll be ready for Squadron. We may see some. We may have to fight a small Vandal raiding party
in like
Pyro. But doesn't Pyro share a border with Vandal space?
No, it shares a border with Nyx, which has a border with Vandal space.
Okay, so if they get Nyx in, they could have some Vandal stuff. There's a good reason to get Nyx.
Yeah.
You get small Vandal raids occasionally. That'll give you like some cool instance.
Yeah.
Elliot could probably do something with that for like an event. He'd probably enjoy like throwing some Vandal at us.
It'd be cool to fight like a small Vandal raid with like a destroyer or like a cruiser or something like that. Some small capital ship combat with them, because they should be ready and polished.
You could unlock like a Vandal ship out of the raid. Like you get Vandal crash on the surface of a planet, and it's like, oh, here's a scythe. And you can fly it.
Build and play. What do you think between quarter one, like the March and Invictus patch, the quarter one patch and Invictus overall? What do you think? What do you expect for us to see next year?
I feel like, especially in general next year, CIG is still going to be focusing a lot on engine-related stuff because Squadron, obviously. So I definitely expect that we'll be seeing some of like the dynamic weather. It wouldn't surprise me at all if in 4.2 we already see a first implementation of that, because we already have the moving clouds in game right now. And in EP2 that you have people making these time lapses of all the clouds moving on all the Pyro planets. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot of that weather stuff. Also, a lot of the tech, the GPU terrain, moving terrain to GPU. Maybe even some first work on global illumination, but I don't think that's going to be the next 6 months. So yeah, especially some of that work. I also expect a lot of, as Chris said in the Dead of the Chairman as well, I expect a lot of work on reputation-based systems. I think CIG wants to finally start diving into that. Reputation V2, basically. I don't really expect anything.
Now that we have Pyro and Stan, we can have like more drastic reputation locks. Like if you really mess up, you can't go to Stanton anymore without getting hassled by the cops. So you're basically going to be living in Pyro if you're really bad.
I'm going to go off and say I really hope that they can make. So one of the things that I think would be cool would be big go all or nothing sort of missions in the criminal missions in Stanton, where like you could make a lot of money. Like,
Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
you're kind of thinking
kind of like a big heist missions, but like you are going to have level 5 crime stat instantly.
You're basically talking about criminal raids.
Yeah,
I would love to see something like that. You get level 5. You're not going to. The crime stat system's like is something they wanted to move away from anyways, and they kind of did a little bit.
But like
recently,
super negative reputation to the point where you won't be able to land, or like you'll be pursued constantly by. You're
gonna have to like get fake credentials and whatnot,
and stuff that
I would love to see something like
something like that where it's like a big risk, big reward. Because I'm also a big fan of Payday before they ruined the Payday franchise. But that concept of like executing on a well organized plan and having to do, they already have some of that stuff with like what is that? the security post Korea raid sort of thing. But it's kind of, he's not really, the juice isn't worth the squeeze with that. So I'd love to see it kind of expand.
I complain about that constantly. Like I very rarely go to security post Korea for like any. The problem is like when you want to PvP, you don't want like NPCs getting in your way. You don't want automated defense turrets. You just want to you want to go fight players. And when you show up to security post Korea as a bad guy or a good guy, you're inevitably going to get mixed up with like the NPC stuff. And
There are
especially with like
800 of them.
Yeah. And the NPCs usually give the good guys, the bounty hunters, air quotes, bounty hunters, the good guys, the people who are trying to stop you from hacking your crime site. Usually the security gives you more help on your side, so it's kind of like unbalanced. It's not like a game of Battlefield where it's like two teams versus each other and you both have all the same options. It's just how you play the game. Like security post Korea gives like one side a massive advantage, so there's really no reason for you to engage in that as a person who's interested in PvP. And as someone who likes doing bounty hunting, when you see that mission pop up for security post Korea, the what is it? Stop the Raiders at security post Korea. I can't remember because I hardly ever take it anymore. Every time it pops up, you go there and you don't know who's on your side. The fog of war is very real. So you shoot the wrong person, you get crime stat.
Yeah.
And now you're the criminal that needs to be eliminated as a result. And that's just fuck that.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I hate the current crime system. I think it's an awful way. It needs to be changed up. But that's an example of something that I'd hope they do in the next 6 months or so. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Bob?
I would say I still expect them also to just together with reputation economy is very important, that they have been focusing on that right now a lot. So I'm expecting them to do a lot of economy stuff, keep balancing that. I don't know how much we'll actually notice from that as players. Maybe here and there they'll accidentally mess up some zeros again and fuel will become 8 million again. But other than that, I don't think that's too noticeable. And also about the it would be really cool to see with Pyro, if you have a group of like people who have good reputation with Xenothreat, they can actually cause a sort of Xenothreat global event to happen on the shard. If all of them do such a raid as you guys were talking about, that would be really cool to see. But no clue if that's something CIG is considering. Finally, please, the social mobiGlas app and player organization stuff. I really hope we get that, but I kind of doubt that within the next. Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
Especially since it was all concept art, but.
Well, I also imagine it's not as complicated to implement that stuff because it's mostly back-end features. There's not a lot of. It's a graphical interface. It's a graphical interface with back-end stuff.
Yeah, but this is Star Citizen we're talking about. They have trouble introducing UI.
Well, every so often, CIG will do something much faster than we all thought they would.
Oh yeah, I'm more than willing. CIG proved me wrong.
Yeah.
So you get that orgs level stuff in there because we kind of need it now. We have like ships that require like multiple people to operate properly, like the Polaris. Like you need a crew of people, and now 1.0 is not even going to have NPC crew, and I know 1.0 is not coming out now.
No.
Like they're gonna piecemeal 1.0 out. Like they're gonna take features out of 1.0 and like, okay, now it's 4.2. We're gonna use this out of out of 1.0. This feature's in 4.2 now. We're checking that off the box.
Yeah,
that's probably what's gonna happen. They're just gonna grab stuff out of 1.0 on the 1.0 is always gonna be on the end of the roadmap.
Yeah,
and they're just gonna grab stuff out of 1.0 and move it into the patch that's coming up next when it's ready to go.
Of course.
Okay.
And NPCs aren't coming for 1.0, so I know NPCs for your ships aren't coming this year, next year.
Don't rub it in. Bob is very angry about that.
I know.
What? No. Like it.
That's your whole thing is moving NPCs, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's saying NPCs like as crew,
for your
passenger
NPC
transport.
crews.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even think we'll have. Maybe we could have passenger transports before crew NPCs because it's just getting the guys to walk onto the ships and sit down and then walk off the ship.
Yeah,
like 2 years ago, they already put some of the code in that's still in there for the mission.
That was we actually had NPC pilots showed off at CitizenCon 2952 with that Microtech mission with the Carrack.
You
got into a Valkyrie that took you to
2019.
That
Yeah.
was?
That was 2019.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's really long ago.
Yeah, that was 2019.
Also,
But-
NPCs walk onto like the Valkyrie, the Cutlass, and all that stuff. Especially now with
They
them
do.
working, they keep walking onto the ships.
What do you mean the NPCs? We mean the Kazi Grazer keeps walking onto people's ships and just
Have you
being like,
seen-
I hear that.
Have you seen the one where they abducted one into an 890 jump?
Yes,
And he was
and
running
it
through
went
the...
crazy and started
yes.
killing
I've seen
people.
that one.
Yeah. So I think in the first 6 months we're going to get Nyx. I don't know
Nyx
if it'll
in
be
the next 6 months.
Yes, I think I don't know if it will actually happen, but I think that they're going to shoot for it. I think that may be one of those things where they put it in Evocati and they test Nyx with the patch, and then they go, not quite ready yet. We need to work out some other few things. Then it'll end up in an EPTU and come out in like 2 months or 3 months after, after it'll come out in a 4.1 point.
I could honestly, I could see Nyx.
patch.
I don't think it's going to come out next, but I could see them maybe doing Nyx as just like an empty system with just like mineable.
Yeah.
And maybe not having Delamar because it's not quite ready yet. And then they put that in the PTU and was like, hey, the only thing to do in Nyx is like mine stuff. You better bring a Starfarer.
Yeah. Well, I think I do think that Nyx is going to be generally less. It's smaller than Pyro, bigger than Stanton, but most things are bigger than Stanton. And it's also mostly empty. There's only 2 factions. There's only 2 major factions. Technically, there'll be more, like the Citizens for Prosperity will be there, and there'll be a few other factions in there that we already have. Like, I'm sure we'll see.
Yeah, they're largely implemented.
Yeah.
But see, they can always change the lore. They can always rewrite stuff.
They did They did with
They did it for
Pyro.
They did it
Pyro.
with
Yeah.
But I don't see them doing it because the reason why they did it for Pyro was more to like match the narrative, and also because it was the second system they were adding to the game. With Nyx, it's always been Nyx is literally the goddess of sleep, of night. So it's mostly just a nebula. And I do believe that the main feature of Nyx is going to be scanning, where like the system itself is hostile to you being able to scan through it because the nebula is supposed to break up signals. So that's what they want to try to test. Kind of like how the main feature of Pyro was supposed to be the solar flare. And that's why engineering was introduced with that, because it was supposed to interact with engineering so that players would have to have an engaging like environmental concept, not just all players would have to deal with it, not just players who are dealing with combat. They'd have to deal with the solar flare, then having to repair their ships and moving forward and that kind of thing. And I think that's really what Nyx is about. Its main focus is scanning and stealth, and how you deal with scanning and stealth, no matter if you're a combat or not.
I personally, with Nyx, it's like, I don't think it's going to be next 6 months. I think it's more likely that CIG will put it around Sitcon maybe, because what else are they going to do for Sitcon? Another Squadron one, because it's going to release the year after. I mean, it's going to be a big part of it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's part of it. I also think it's going to be soon, because Nyx, I mean, back in 2021, 2022, I believe they had some, on like SCL and stuff, they showed the concept arts and some final art plans and flora and fauna, basically, for Nyx that we haven't seen in Pyro. I've looked at basically all the planets at this point, and I haven't seen those assets.
Yeah, they were built specifically for Nyx. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Delamar and Levski, of course. I believe that they are pretty far with that, because a while ago as well, when they added the hospitals and stuff, they also
added
quickly
the
showed
hospital. Yeah.
that they added the hospital there, and then during Sitcon they showed the external hangars, the internal hangars. I don't think Nyx is far off. I genuinely believe that it's going to be before 4.5, 4.6.
Yeah.
So like
next
year.
Yeah.
But I don't expect it in the next 6 months. I mean, I'm thinking Sitcon, maybe even end of year release comparable to Pyro. But
yeah, I think we may get into like preview in the next 6 months.
yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, I want to hope that we'll see Nyx next in Q2. In terms of like playability, maybe something like we have now, where you have like a 4.2 4.1 preview and a 4.1, where like you can play on either one, but 4.1 preview has
But
Nyx.
then Pyro gets delayed so far that we have that we have 2 previews, so we have 3 consecutive live.
How many
I don't see it
patches do we
happening.
need, right? How many PT patches?
Patches do we need? I kind of like that new system that they're talking about though, because it just kind of cuts a lot of the like, hey, we'll deal with this later for people to play if they want to play with it because it's broken and doesn't work very well. Yeah, it has new content, but it doesn't work very well. So you can just enjoy the stuff that we actually have done that have been fixed. But yeah, no, I think Nyx is in high contention for being seen and playable in quarter two. Could release. I think that's the plan is for it to release, at least internally. And then, because I do think that they want to try to get both Nyx and Castor out next year. I think they're probably ambitious, too ambitious because it's CIG. But I do think that you're going to see it just because of so many of the assets are already done. The mission givers are already done for Nyx. They just have some small updates to do for the asteroid and some of the other aspects of it. And the planets
small updates for the asteroid, man, it was completely different.
I mean, yeah,
they
but
showed off at CitizenCon.
It's completely different, but the difference is the thing about it is you never really went around the asteroid. it was just a ball of rock that you could drive on. There was no real interesting aspects to it other than that. So they kind of just removed all the parts that nobody used and just made it a cool asteroid base. But at the same time, what's actually changing, it looks like they haven't even really updated the landing zone itself. It's still the same landing zone. It's just also getting a cargo deck, and some other small additions here and there. And CIG has overhauled the entirety of Lorville in 6 months. So I don't see them being able to. I don't see that being a big deal for them to already in gray box working on.
I agree.
So
yeah. Especially since if you look at the progress tracker right now, the amount of teams still actively working on Squadron is just getting smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And especially location-wise and stuff, it's decreasing. So I think we're going to see, unless CIG does a huge amount of layoffs, I think we're going to see Nyx next year and Castor probably the year after, both pretty quickly. Maybe not even that with that much content, but that's we'll see.
Mm-hmm. We'll see about that. Now let's I'll start with you on this one, Bob, for the next one, which is how about quarter 3 through quarter 2 through quarter 3. So from June to August, September-ish. What do you think people? What do you think CIG is going to be tackling in that span?
I mean, personally, I'm really hoping that CIG will do an R-Corp rework next year.
Okay.
Of the planet itself, because it's been degrading over, like, if you go down to the surface at a random spot right now, the terrain generation or the city generation, I guess, is a complete mess. Everything is through each other. It doesn't make any sense. It looks ugly. It's not up to standard anymore, and especially if they want to work on those sewers and other building interiors on R-Corp, I expect them to do a rework before that. And just like with Lorville, I don't think CIG is. I think their tools for planets are getting pretty good right now, and I think they're going to do a rework together with a lot of those Genesis tools coming in. So yeah, I'm hoping that we see that around that time next year, and then Nyx after. But yeah, other than that, what else?
Have you seen any gameplay specifically?
I mean, I'd hope so. I think we're going to see a lot more missions because once again, those teams moving over from Squadron, just more like, I don't know, like investigation missions, more repair-related missions, more infiltration missions on outposts with all these secret passageways on outposts and stuff in Pyro. But other than that, I personally don't really expect to see. I mean,
features.
It's just I don't expect to see the gameplay I'm interested in, and I'm not really following the other gameplay, I'll be honest. So I'm not sure about the other stuff.
How about you, Vertigo?
Yep.
June through August.
I'm for like the next
for next year.
For next year,
I will remind the audience as well, because that is summer.
Summer.
And Star Citizen is notoriously bad with summer releases.
Yeah, usually you have stuff around Invictus, and you have stuff around CitizenCon. Usually CitizenCon's like all the hype shit comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm expecting it to be pretty quiet, like mostly bug fixes, more mission content, little tiny stuff, maybe some UI updates here and there. Obviously ship sales and whatnot. Honestly, I think it's gonna be pretty quiet. CIG is gonna be saving everything up for Invictus launch week, not
For IE.
Intergalactic IE and Citizen.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be sitting on their laurels for this summer. So it's gonna be one of those snooze fests. Whatever game releases at that time, a lot of people are gonna be streaming, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever new release.
Well, summer is always
summertime.
Summertime is always dead for gaming, unfortunately, because people like to do this thing called touch grass in the summer.
Yeah.
So it tends to be antithetical to playing video games inside. I do think it's someone brought this up in chat, but I do think the one big thing we'll probably see in quarter 3 between June and August is going to be dynamic server meshing, at least in testing. I think they're gonna
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, maybe.
Because they
in tech preview, yeah.
In tech preview. Because they definitely said last year and this year, Benoit and his team have been very, very adamant. They're like, we can get this done soon, like very quickly after static meshing. Now, I'd still think that there's probably more issues in meshing that they can unravel and figure out that they need to kind of optimize between now and June, which they'll probably do pretty well. Things will get better. The scalability and stuff like that. But I think next summer would be the perfect time for them to start adding testing for dynamic meshing to allow for and do crazy things. Please, CIG, if you're going to do dynamic testing, go for broke. You know, none of this. Oh, we're gonna do 1,000 players. Like hit us with a 5,000 player shard with dynamic meshing.
Yeah,
blow it up, explode it. Like people are gonna get mad about it anyways. But the headlines: 5,000 people per shard. Like go nuts, go insane. Like
make a queue system so people don't spawn in the same hub at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is like if you get 5,000 people into the same shard, like it's what can one shard hold?
Yeah.
If the entire every MMO has this problem. If everybody converges into one shard, then you have to split that shard off into 2 separate shards. So basically,
servers, like, DGSs,
yeah. You don't have to do servers, sharding, whatever. But you'd have to you'd have to have 2 versions of Port Olisar.
Yeah.
Right? If you had 5,000 people show up at Port Olisar and then 5,001 comes in,
yeah,
you're gonna have to split Port Olisar into 2.
Oh yeah, like
and then have one person in one. You have to figure out what you're going to do with that. Every MMO has this problem. What happens when you get everybody in the server
one
into
place.
one location? What happens?
Yeah, but the thing is,
usually
I don't think this is an issue on the server side that much anymore, because the way CIG has implemented server meshing right now, I did some testing together with another streamer, Mind1. We did a shit ton of testing at server borders, and what we noticed is that no matter if you're on both, you can see each other, and when you're overlapping, because a ship can be on one
half and
the front of the ship can be on the other one, you can still see each other and mostly interact. There are some issues, especially with like tractor beams and salvage beams.
Yeah.
But mostly it's pretty functional. And the way CIG has said they will do it is by layering. So the thing is, you can see the other players around you. You can literally interact with them, even though you're both on a different DGS. And that should theoretically still work. Of course, client-side performance will be terrible with 5,000 people in one place.
100%.
So that is a big issue. But I don't think CIG...
And the game systems aren't even built for 5,000 people. Like.
No, of course.
Like, you need... Just can you imagine everyone trying to spawn a ship? Like, in one area? So that... Let's just have a DGS which has, let's just say even a quarter of that. So like 1,000 people. Can you imagine 1,000 people on ArcCorp trying to call a ship? Like... Can you imagine what that's going to do to the back end? That's part of the reason why I wanted to go nuts, is because I wanted to see them break the game so hard, because they're going to have to eventually deal with that situation. If CIG does want to, their big goal is to have one shard for every region. Like right now, CIG has a concurrency of about, based off of numbers that was released with the letter from the chairman. The average concurrency for this year, which was a low year in terms of participation, was about, on average, over about 4,000 people a day were playing Star Citizen, at any hour on average. So 4,000 people an hour every day for 365 days. That doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could get 4,000 people into one server or one shard, that would reduce the amount of, servers you need to purchase by a lot. And of course, we're going to see more players playing as 4.0 comes out. We've already seen a huge driving up of new player signups and people playing the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they had the highest amount of players they've had outside of a major event in years, just from this release. But
what do you mean by they will need less servers? What do you mean by that?
So the thing is like right now with like say 3.24, every instance is a server.
Right.
With 4.0, every shard has 10 servers, but they're only 600 people. So the problem is that long term, if you can get more people into a shard, you can reduce the number of servers overall, because if you can get each server to have an average of say 300 people in it and still function well, then you don't need as many to pay for as many servers as you would if you every single 100 person needed to, every 100 people per server. So having one big dedicated shard for an entire region would mean that there'd probably be
with dynamic server meshing, there would be less number of DGSs on average being used than if there were if you still had the same system. So it's going that might be the case.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why I want them to break the game with some preview stuff, because it'll also be fun.
Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about how server meshing works to like talk about that. So.
I know enough to be dangerous, and that's about it. So with that being said, let's talk about the last big one, because I also think there's not going to be much in the summer, because it's the summer. If we're lucky, we might see new mission chains. I'd love to see a new mission chain, like an Overdrive or Save Stanton event.
We'll definitely see something.
Yeah,
a new mission chain of some kind.
Big one. Q4. So September through December. Bob, what do you think?
I still think it's mostly going to be a year with a lot of engine stuff, related stuff, like the Genesis and the Global Illumination.
Genesis,
yeah, exactly.
Weather system.
Fully switching over to Vulkan, probably. I expect that like at the end of next year, because there's still a lot of stuff that needs to happen. For example, for my own system, DX11 still runs way better than Vulkan for whatever reason. But I do expect them to do a lot in that area. Once again, I expect Nix in that last period. About the ArcCorp rework, someone said something a good point as well. I do think ArcCorp rework is probably after all the Genesis stuff is implemented, or Planetary Tech V5. So, good point. What else? I personally don't expect base building. My own prediction for base building, even the first simple implementation, is early 2026. I know there's probably a lot of people who are more positive on that.
I don't know, like base building next year, 2026. I'm not seeing it too well.
I see it.
I expect like the first like small scale buildings in 2026 personally, but like only in 2020, like after 2025. I'm not too positive on that area. The team did make great progress, but actually implementing it into the game, especially with all the shards that we have per region right now.
I could see crafting being expanded upon this year towards CitizenCon.
Yeah.
See more crafting stuff. Yeah. I know there's a few ships that have crafting stations in them, like the Carrack has an engineering bay. And
almost all the ships have a food fab now. So they have a fabricator in their ships.
And you have crafting is basically one of the most simplest game loops you can make. It's just you have item in your inventory, you remove item from your inventory, then put new item in your. That's basically how it happens.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of like shovelware games are crafting, looting, survival affairs.
So Vertigo.
Also,
go ahead. You have more?
Two more things. The actual org gameplay stuff, Moby-Glass update. I think that's going to be more around Sitcon, or rather than earlier in the year. And finally, I am hoping that they'll do something with the drones that they've been kind of teasing in this Zeus trailer. Maybe Vulcan or implementing the drones for the like the old repair system, basically with the drones again, with the Garrick drones as well, that type of stuff.
Vertigo, what do you think? Because the fourth quarter is always the biggest quarter for Star Citizen. What do you think? What do you think they're going to go out with?
I could definitely see some Mobiglass updates, big old Mobiglass updates. As Bob said, maybe some org stuff, some more Spectrum integration, some better chat. They showed off the new communication stuff at Cisco, so I could definitely see all that stuff kind of maybe working its way in towards the end of next year. Definitely maybe see like more them expanding upon the crafting system, giving some of the other ships that have crafting capabilities more stuff to do. Maybe like more hydrogen mining for the Starfarer. You can actually do some stuff with hydrogen stuff because I mean they haven't touched on the fuel system for a long time. Because the Starfarer was supposed to be able to refine hydrogen fuel and fill itself up. And it makes sense you could do that in like a gas giant or something. So CIG may do something with that, where you could like mine hydrogen fuel from gas pockets, sell it as a trade good. I'm not too. There's no indication that CIG is going to be working on that because we haven't heard them talk about it, but it's still something that can be done. Obviously more ships, probably like the Perseus is going to come out around that time. I think CIG's working on it. So we'll see more of that stuff going on. And honestly, like they already with the Perseus and the Polaris. I think they said the Ironclad was going to be working on as well.
Yep, they showed it in a silhouette video at SitCon.
SitCon. So it would definitely make sense for like more org stuff. You have a lot bigger ships coming in. We already have quite a few big ships in jump. The Polaris. So if they're gonna add more, it'd be nice to have like org
tools. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're gonna have another system. They may have like a big org event.
You don't think we're gonna see next year?
I think next year makes sense. Towards the end of next year.
You think? Okay.
They're having trouble. The problem right now is they're having troubles making the star systems. Because all their team is probably working on the star systems for like Squadron 4, getting them all finished up and whatnot.
I think a lot of those teams are moved over, so I believe we'll still have it because it seems like CIG was setting the tone. Because someone asked this in chat, it's important to note that CIG showed off for base building, Nyx, and Castra. All of those things they showed off, they said were in gray box. And gray box is an important feature because gray box is the middle part of development. You have white box, gray box, and then final art. And CIG adds this another step between gray box and final art, which is Laud 0. So, and gray box can be a big. You can just enter gray box, or you can just be at the end of gray box. It's a huge thing. It's a huge variance. But the fact that they say that all of these things are in gray box means that they're out of just the planning basic plot idea and are into the actual development of the like locations, the buildings, all of those sorts of, all of those sorts of aspects. So I believe, I don't think they will, but I do believe that they're going to try to implement Castra next year at that time. I do think that that's going to be their big maypole sort of end of the year roo-rahs. We're going to get Castra out. Do I think it's actually going to come out? No. It may end up in tech preview over the holidays as a thank you. But that would mean give you 4 systems by the end of next year, 3 fully out, 1 in testing. And I do think that they want to get Castra out before the middle of 2026 because that would be the perfect system to have Invictus celebrations. It's literally a former military base. So and it'd also be a great place to have release around Squadron, the big military game. So, and yeah, I think, I do believe that the big thing next year, or for that fourth quarter, is probably going to be base building. I think that's really what they're going to do. But I don't think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be a couple of shacks and some mining material. That's it. We might see it in preview in the summer, but I think that's going to be the thing. We won't see like, you're not going to be building ships. You're not going to be, building massive bases or space stations. You'll be able to do like a general purpose building, a crafting building, and a mining building or something like that. The only thing that, if that's the case, then the only other thing that I could think of that they might be introducing is refining gameplay for players.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only other thing I could see at the end of next year. So,
Paul, could you after this episode share me some Amazon link or something to the hopium you're buying? Because I need some of that too.
Yeah.
I'm not on this. I don't expect to see anything from Castra at all. Maybe it's just because like we saw Pyro Grey Box stuff in 2019.
Yes.
And I know that was bound to technology, server meshing, of course, and that was a big limitation in getting that out the door. But I still don't believe that Castra is going to be next year. And I do believe it's going to be 2026. But even then, I expect it like later in the year.
I think
not at the start.
Like I said, I think CIG is planning on having it at the end of next year. I don't think it'll actually be the end of next year. But the thing that, as I would argue, the internet's outside of CIG, the foremost expert on the Castra system, having called it 3 years before it was announced that it was going to be the third system, calling it the third system. The reasons why they chose it as the third system is really simple. A, it's connected to Nixon Pyro with a jump point. So it's already got two systems already connected to it. And B, it's tiny. It is tiny and mostly empty. It has one airless moon or one airless planet, which gets bombed to hell and back, but it has nothing that much there. So it's like a place you might be able to build a base and get some resources out of, sort of thing. But it has one habitable planet. And that planet's main thing is it's an old military base. So it allows them to take some of the architecture stuff that they built for bases and say maybe squadron and then kind of test a little bit about how that works. So two systems, pretty small, or two planets, pretty small. And the fact, I wouldn't think that it would actually be it's like a tech preview next year if CIG hadn't said it was gray box. That's the big thing for me is them saying it's in gray box makes me go, hold up. Like, let's rewind that. This is gray box. I'm sorry.
But even then, if you looked at the gray box during SitCon,
it's very
especially
early
Sherman.
Gray box. Yeah, it's early.
Yeah,
gray box.
if you looked at Sherman, the textures are the same textures on parts of that building. The textures they were using, I guess it's just to color them in. They were the exact same textures as Everest. The models were pretty low quality, except like a few small areas. And those few small areas were in most cases the hangars, which are obviously the same hangars as we have in Stanton. And the same goes for the entire, the stations they showed, the player space stations.
Yeah.
They said gray box as well. And I don't think it's even reasonable to expect those before 2027, 2028.
No. I mean, I disagree. I think that's more of a 2026 thing, but I also think that there's a lot more, because they're going to have to fill out the interior, and a lot of that stuff was still even slideshows. Like the interior upgrades were all slideshows. So like they having the exterior in gray box makes sense, but the interior is a little different. I still think that that Castra, they're shooting for it for next year, but I don't think they're going to make it next year. To be very clear,
right?
I do think it is still going to be in preview, but I do think that they'll have it finished in some way.
One more thing about the base building. I think someone in chat made a good point. I don't remember who. They said like for base building you would need drones and crafting first.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with that. That's why I expect drones, and as Vertigo said, probably some form of crafting as well. Early like next year probably, but I don't expect base building next year yet. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like CIG is more than welcome to prove us wrong.
Yeah, of course. Please do, CIG. Please do.
Someone said, knowing what the intended gameplay is, would you have wanted Pyro 2 years ago with the systems they had then? It's important to also remember that the reason why Pyro took so long to make had less to do with them making systems and more to do with server meshing. Like it didn't take CIG
I'm sure that
8
Chris
years
Roberts had
to
everybody.
make one system. It was.
I'm pretty sure Chris Roberts had everybody working on like Squadron 42 systems.
Yeah,
at
that too.
that point.
Or
So he was having
for it,
Odin plus whatever else, Vegas,
Yeah.
whatever else they're up to with Squadron 42. I'm sure he was making them work on those.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was like Chris Roberts, like they had a choice a long time ago. They could do what we do for like Star Citizen Arena Commander right now, where you just pick what game mode you want to play. You could choose to play in Stand or you could choose to play in Pyro, but you'd have the same limit of players either or. You wouldn't be able to cross between the two without going back to menu.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to do that because it would mean they would have had to have supported technology that would just be legacied away in the future at some point in time. So they kept their eyes on the prize and said, okay, when server meshing's ready, then we'll have Pyro. So when it looked like server meshing was getting ready to be a thing, they're like, okay, now let's start working on Pyro. Now we have like Squadron 42 is almost finished. Server meshing's getting ready. Now let's get Pyro underway. That's what it really came down to.
Yeah.
They explained that choice a long time ago, but I mean, they could have done that. They had an option in the menu or a loading screen. You fly up to a wormhole
and it cutscenes you. Yeah.
And it cutscenes you into Pyro. They could have done
that. So that was a systems as in technology of the game, not the actual star system. Yeah, that's kind of what Vertigo is talking about.
Yeah, technology.
The issue with they could have done that. I mean, yes, that's true. But then since game servers were all separate before, I think there would have still been a lot of issues because then how
persistence would have been the same.
I feel like they would have needed to implement.
Well, like I said, they would have had to have supported that.
Yeah,
they would have had to support that loading screen.
Exactly.
Handing off persistence to a new server, and it's just like this. Let's do server meshing.
Yeah,
when it's ready.
It's like 2 years of work that they would have put in and then delayed the development of server meshing even longer. So just get it done. So
personally, I also feel like CIG would have Pyro was simpler before, especially in 2020, 2021, and that's why they also showed they were working on Nix back then, expecting that server meshing would be in earlier. But then, because server meshing was taking so long, they kept adding more to Pyro and adding all these other stations next to Ruin Station.
Yeah, I saw someone in chat say like it's gonna take them half a year to finish Pyro. They're never gonna finish Pyro. They're never gonna finish Stanton. They're gonna keep adding stuff to Stanton and Pyro and Nyx and Castra and Terra until the game shuts down. Like
the Aaron Halo belt in Stanton, guys.
The Aaron Halo belt is a main feature that they just haven't, and the belt stations. Like they haven't
talked about it for years.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually they're going to get finished with the system. That system's far enough along that they're going to move on to next system. Yeah,
but they'll always come back to it and work on it.
I don't think they will. They may get a system that's like the Retaliator, which is just good enough. It works, like the Connie. It's an asset that works. It's good enough. There's no reason to change anything about it. And they just keep adding new systems after that. And they're just like, okay, like this old system is just an old system. We're pushing the game in this direction. A lot of MMOs do that, where they just constantly push a new expansion pack, which has a new part of the world.
Yeah,
that expansion pack basically takes part of that world. You could maybe take some of the expansion stuff back to the old game, but really, like the expansion is like its own little contained space.
But the MMOs will also go back and do patches and updates for the old spaces and update.
You've seen that with like EVE Online, where they did like massive graphical updates to the entire game.
No, but I mean, like World of Warcraft famously did like a Cataclysm, which basically changed even the old parts of the game entirely.
But that was a major expansion.
But that's what I'm saying.
I can see CIG doing that, but I don't know.
I think CIG is going to go back every time, especially if they add a feature at some point, like roads, for example, between outposts using Sarkitect, of course, to make them connected with roads. I don't think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, Stanton's an old system, we're not going to add it. I do think they will go back to it and add at least some parts of it, especially since until we have Terra, Stanton is probably going to be the starting system. Yeah.
Until 1.0. 1.0 will be where Terra becomes the starting system, but like until then, Stanton's going to be that. So, but yeah. Let's move on to the last little bit, just kind of overall. Knowing what 2024 was, 2025, I want you to reach into your crystal ball, and I want you both to kind of imagine.
It's getting spicy already.
How 2025 is going to be overall. Do you think we're going into a good year, or do you think we're going into sort of another stagnant year where, or do you think it's going to be, this is the last year Star Citizen is ever going to exist and it's going to fail, 30 days top or 90 days tops, whatever it was. I'll start with you on this one, Bob, and with Vertigo, and then I'll end with it. So
I'm a little bit, I don't know if scared is the right word. I think it depends on a lot. If CIG decides, oh, Squadron is feature complete, we're going to release it next year, let's start working on the second chapter. I think next year or if they decide to work on Soul Singer, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I was gonna remind you about Soul Singer. We don't know what it is. It could be a piece of technology. It could be a new game.
Yeah, but based on the leak from what was this article, Inside Gaming, whatever, it was an idea for a separate game. If CIG decides to do something like that, or if CIG does massive layoffs because of financial issues or whatever, because remember, there are a few of these investors from a few years ago, and they are allowed to pull out some of the money. They weren't really investors because they're not earning a lot on it. It's not like public company investment, but I don't know if you guys remember this. This was 2022, I think. When this happened.
I will clarify some of those things because I've done a lot of look into this, and I've talked with people who have 0 through 11 did a lot of look at this. They're called the Calders. They're a family, and they're personal friends of the Robertses. They're personal friends with Chris and his wife, which is why they invested. They also own a bunch of media companies, like advertising companies. And while I don't think it was ever explicitly stated, it was definitely implied that the reason why they were investing into Star Citizen
CIG.
or to CIG was because they wanted to be part of the ground floor for the marketing campaign for Squadron. They wanted to be in charge of that. And so that's, and when
basically a sweetheart investors, there's very little strings attached to.
Yeah, they're not really there as a we're
gonna get money back on this.
Yeah, they weren't really there. They were more personal friends who were doing this for their friends. But they're like, hey, and on top of that, they've had multiple chances to pull out. They haven't. And in fact, they just doubled down because when what is his name? The co-founder who left this year.
Ortwin.
When Ortwin left earlier in the summer, when he pulled out, those investors who were the Calders purchased his shares. So
right, okay.
So those, you don't purchase shares in a company you think is failing.
No, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will address this. I've addressed this before as well. The Inside Gaming thing, the guy who does the articles for Star Citizen on that, he's done some really good stuff in the past, but the quality of his articles about Star Citizen has been shockingly bad. A lot of the content, his most recent article was talking specifically about Ortwin leaving, and it's Ortwin left it in the summer. We all knew that he left in the summer, and he's making this some big news. A lot of the stuff he's dropped and the timing he's dropped it feels very like he's invested a lot of time and energy, and he's just desperately trying to get some engagement back with it. It feels very, it's bad quality even for his standards, a lot of the stuff. And even for instance, there was a famous, at least in my Discord, there was a big brouhaha because there was one of the women who was actually on Star Citizen Live and ISC who worked for Turbulent. She famously got laid off after the merger happened, and she was very upset by that and felt that she was getting screwed over by Turbulent in the process, and they were trying to move everybody to the UK, and she refused to do that, and it was a pretty nasty thing that she wrote very publicly on
imagine
LinkedIn.
that.
Yeah,
an employee gets fired and then has some opinions.
Yeah, but I mean,
or laid off. Employer gets furloughed and has opinions.
The point is that case, very, very negative look at CIG.
Yep.
He never mentioned it, but it's been popular all over the community. I've heard about it, other people have heard about it, and I'm not an investigative reporter. I don't make my job investigating things. So if I know how to do it, and yes, I cover the game, but I didn't go looking for it. It just people found it and showed it to me. You'd expect somebody who is a professional reporter to do so. So anything taken from Inside Gaming, in my opinion, is very grain of salt, because for whatever reason, he's just either his heart's not into it or he's listening to some weird people. It's just one of those, I don't know what he's talking about a lot of time. So
even then, we still don't know what Soul Singer is. We have no clue.
That's true. Yeah.
Like I said, it could be a piece of technology like server meshing. CIG just slapped a fancy name onto it, and they Soul Singer on there. Could be a new game. Could be Squadron 42's
AI tech or something.
Yeah, AI tech. Could be the sequel to Squadron 42. Could be called Squadron 43 Soul Singer or some shit. Could be a completely different IP. They just because when you finish, I hate to break it to y'all, when you start wrapping up production on a project in a gaming company, you immediately start working on the next project because you want to keep making money.
Yep.
Right? If that's what you're doing, if you're in the business of making video games, you're going to make more than one. You don't just shut the company down after you release one good video game. You try again at least. So after they're done with Squadron 42, they're going to want to do something else after that. And it may not be Squadron 43. Squadron 42 squared.
Part 2, yeah.
Electric Boogaloo.
So overall,
Electric Boogaloo.
if you could summarize it in a couple of sentences, or like in like a sentence or so, Bob, is next year good or bad?
So if CIG doesn't get into financial trouble or work on the sequel of Squadron or Soul Singer or whatever that is, I think next year is going to be actually pretty good because of the letter of the chairman, and because of, Pyro coming in. There's still a lot of gameplay in there that a lot of people haven't engaged with yet because of the current state. And just based off the way CIG wants to go now, based off that letter of the chairman and Sitcon, I do think next year is going to be a pretty good year. I just hope it's also good, new players coming in and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say good. Personally, maybe not great because I don't expect to see any passenger transport gameplay really.
That's your thing. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Vertigo. Next year, good, bad. What's your opinion on what's coming up next year?
I fully expect CIG to keep developing the game, to get more stuff, more things. I'm hoping with 4.0 that we're gonna have more stability, and Elliot is gonna be able to go wild and not have Siege of Orison bullshit happening to him. Because the one thing that's holding back the people who are designing missions and events in Star Citizen is the game engine itself just being an absolute mess. And it's hard to make anything really interesting when you can only paint in black and white, and you only get black half the time.
Yeah.
And that was like Siege of Orison was great when it worked. The couple of times it worked for me. Most of the time, the guy would spawn in the ground. He wouldn't spawn at all. He wouldn't have the items on him. He needed to turn off the stuff, or the game didn't register. Or the server would crash. Same with the Xenothreat thing. They did the new Xenothreat thing this year, and every time I accepted a mission, the server would do a crash recovery, and I'd lose the mission. And then I had to wait 30 minutes for the mission to pop up again. And this is stupid. I can't take that. And so I just go play Helldiver or something instead. So I'm hoping next year that is a lot less and less and less and less and less as the year progresses. As the next year progresses, 2025, we just see less and less issues, and we start seeing more and more Star Citizen into the project it's always supposed to. This entire time for the past 13 years. That's one thing that always blows my mind, is just how much time and how much money has passed, and Star Citizen is still it's still an art project. I actually got moderated on the forums because I called Star Citizen an interactive art gallery. Yeah, Knight Rider took exception to me saying that that Star Citizen was an interactive art experience. It was an actual game.
I've heard people legitimately say Star Citizen is not a game, it's an experience. Not in terms of like the negative connotations, but in the like Star Citizen is beyond just a game. A game has a end, it has different things. Star Citizen is not trying to be a game. It's trying to be your life,
But my right now this year, I looked at Star Citizen as something that was just, you really don't play. It's something where maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But really what works in Star Citizen is getting your ship, taking off, landing on a planet, taking screenshots, saving it as your desktop background, and just going to play something else that works better. I'm hoping next year we'll see more gameplay stuff, maybe some more Arena Commander stuff. Now the CIG's got their network code kind of figured out. At least they got more of a more narrow road to walk when it comes to the network stuff. So everybody else, all the other moving pieces can now work around server meshing, and everything starts working better now. That's what I'm hoping.
I mean, just based off the high server FPS and how responsive NPCs are right now, I do think next year is just going to be better. Just because even if they make the old missions work in server meshing, they're a lot more fun.
Yeah, no, I like NPCs aren't amazing in 4.0. They're not like the hardest and best NPCs I've ever seen. But the fact that like you can go into a contested zone, and the second you fire, if there are more than one NPCs, they immediately go like they're looking somewhere else, and they go, "Hello, you're firing a gun. I'm going to fire at you now." And it's instantaneously, or not instantaneously. It's you can see them pull their gun out, turn towards you, aim and fire like you would see an NPC in any other game, rather than just sort of you unload an entire magazine of assault rifle ammo into the dirt, and they'll sit there for 5 minutes and go, "Oh right, there's somebody here," and then turn at you. That's just a lot much better. So
yeah, I had that with like the PTU for 4.0, where I was having NPCs teleport all over the place. I'm shooting at them where they are, and they're not taking any damage, but they're shooting at me and hitting me. And
yeah,
that's still an issue, to be honest. I have met two invincible NPCs, so they still exist.
but it's a lot better with 4.0, I would say, for sure. It's a lot more
better than
game.
life, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think next year is going to be a year of, like I said, experimentation. I think we're going to see a lot more content out, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of features. I think the only features we really know that CIG is working on that they have stated are scanning, base building, and the monster hunting mission sequence. That's it. Everything else is sort of like Maelstrom's being worked on. They've been working on the new quantum travel.
Maelstrom, yeah.
They've had the new quantum travel stuff for a while. Like there's a lot of other things that have sort of in the wind, but those three are the only ones that we have seen concrete evidence of them working on, either visual or in their monthly reports, that they've been specifically working on for specifically release. So, and engineering. Yes, and so someone's put on engineering. Engineering should have come out with 4.0, but it's just.
I mean, honestly,
they didn't have time to test it. Is what they said.
Fine, so. Engineering can be pushed, can be kicked down the road. You got more than enough shit in Pyro to keep you occupied, folks. And like, really, what's holding back Star Citizen like within the next year is like the quality of the game. Actually, getting actual people to sit down and play it, and crew your Idris, crew your Polaris, crew your 890 jump. Actually do like contested zones and shit. That's kind of like the problem with Star Citizen. Like the art's great, the music's great. Everybody loves the Pager. I don't like the new Pager that much.
I love it.
I'm gonna say a hot take. There you go. I don't like the new work the Pager's put out.
Get out.
That weird synthy piece they keep using. I hate that.
I love it.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad you like it.
Keep digging that hole there, Vertigo. It's the one thing
I like the Project Wingman soundtrack. I like the Helldiver soundtrack.
I like those too, but yeah. For different reasons.
So, like, I'm not one of those people that, like, goes on a talk show that says, like, oh, wonderful, like, Radiohead and, like, Bon Jovi. Like, I like everybody. Garth Brooks. No, I actually have
opinions,
things I like, and I like them very specifically for what they are. I have things I don't like, and I will talk about them both. But yeah, like...
very Interstellar.
Yeah, it feels very spacey.
Yeah,
definitely kind of interstellar vibes. So yeah, like I'm hoping that we'll get more stability, we'll get better reaction with the game. The game world doesn't ignore you nearly as much when you do something. The game recognizes that you did a thing and it does the thing you were supposed. You press the button, and it does the thing you press the button for. You press the reload button, your gun actually reloads.
Mm-hmm. I can pull out the med pen, guys. It works.
I know, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping for that, and we get that stuff down. We get more people into the game, and like, hey, Star Citizen actually kind of fun to play. Let's do some of these contested zones. Let's get some of this loot.
I'm hoping for summer. I think next year summer is going to be the summer. It'll be the hot Star Citizen summer for. Because...
Oh! I got another one, Paul. PvP is not going to kill Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Like you go to the forums, right? You go to the Spectrum. The official forums for Star Citizen, and you go to Reddit occasionally, and you read about this, how PvP is killing Star Citizen, and people are going to leave if CIG doesn't do something about the state of Pyro and PvP and whatnot. Like I don't think that's gonna kill the game.
No. I was
No.
surprised. I'm surprised. I have jumped multiple times through Pyro and Stanton's jump point, expecting to get ganked, and I have not yet been ganked since EPTU. I don't know why. Maybe just because the bugs are causing the PvPers to just kind of chill out and not do something, or the gankers.
It's gonna happen. It's
Eventually.
gonna happen one of these days.
But
it's happened to me, but
it swings. It has swings and roundabouts with the popularity of Star Citizen.
Yeah.
When Star Citizen gets really popular, you're gonna have more assholes coming in just naturally. And then, of course, when things go down, the player base kind of rescinds. People who want to play Star Citizen get bored after a while. I think what's happening right now is everybody's just exploring Pyro. Everybody's just seeing what's out there and all the cool stuff. So
there's still stuff. They're not bored.
We're shaking the keys in front of the toddler. The toddler's like really engrossed in the keys, but soon the toddler's going to get hungry and it's going to want a blankie and a teat to suck on. But it's going to happen. Gate camping is going to be a thing in Star Citizen. I have no idea how CIG is going to counter gate camping and offline base raiding in the future.
I know how they're going to
have to come up with something.
I know how they're going to do gate camping, and you're going to hate it.
What?
Armistice zones.
I am of the opinion that hard armistice zones are never going away.
Yeah.
Especially like I think they're going to be limited only to the newbie areas wherever new players spawn initially. You're going to have hard armistice zones where you cannot draw any weapons, you cannot take any hostile.
Yeah.
But once you get out of these high security areas where newbies spawn, then it's going to be like soft armistice zones where maybe you can't draw like a personal firearm, or maybe you have to turn your personal firearms in. Because there's always going to be people out there who are going to be hunting the new people to make their lives miserable. Welcome to Star Citizen, motherfucker. Here's an Aurora. Boom.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I am not against the idea of welcome to Pyro, skablat in your face sort of situation. Like
I'm fine with that because it's been beaten into us. Because it's Pyro's lawless. It's the PvP system.
Yeah, it's in the lore. It's in the game design. It's in the mission design. It's in the like the environmental storytelling.
If you can't get into Pyro tonight, like if you can't get into Pyro right now because you keep getting killed, like you're just gonna have to come back later when the trolls aren't there. You can't pay the troll toll.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to come back when they're offline, if they ever go offline.
Yeah,
I mean it's interesting how CIG will deal with it, because it kind of surprised me that the jump point station at the Pyro side, the Stanton Gateway, basically, that station is still UEE controlled.
Yeah,
and has a cover ray in Pyro.
That's how CIG is going to reduce the gate camping Pyro. But eventually we're going to get systems that are lawless that are connected to each other. So lawless and basically
and Pyro.
Yeah, Nix and Pyro. What's going to happen between those two systems?
Yeah,
I'm really curious.
Lore-wise, nothing should happen, right?
I mean, I'm quite curious what they will do, because it wouldn't surprise me if CIG just comes up with a reason for the UEE to still be there, because like they have to, do checkpoints basically in these lawless places.
What I could see CIG doing is having the local security take control of the jump point.
I hope they do that.
You'll have headhunters, Xenothreat, or Citizens of Prosperity, whoever the dominant faction around near the jump point is, take control of that jump point, and they'll have limited security there.
I think with Pyro, it'll probably be the Citizens for Prosperity, because that makes the most sense. So, but yeah.
So you'll have someone running that station with the weapon systems active, or it could be a completely independent faction that just like they exist there just to run the station. Everybody, because what two things are always true in life, Paul?
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to pay a tribute to get to Pyro, to Nyx.
Yeah.
You have to pay somebody to use that jump point. And they have guns because they collect taxes, and those taxes go to pay for their opulent lifestyle and those fucking guns.
Yes.
Well, that make everyone pay taxes.
Everyone is going to have to pay fees. Even you're going to have to pay taxes in Pyro. Like your taxes are going to be paid in
blood, sweat, or money, ass, grass, or cash.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
You're gonna either pay in bullets or bills, one of the two.
Yeah. So like you could just have like kind of the same stuff that happens already in Stanton just more localized. You can still have the crime stat system.
Yeah.
Just when you enter Headhunter space, suddenly your crime stat pops up, just like Grim Hex.
Yeah,
you go to Grim Hex and Stanton, your crime stat marker goes away.
That's just
but as soon as you
reputation.
leave Grim Hex, your
Yeah.
crime stat marker shows back up.
So the same way as Elite Dangerous does it, basically, because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have a crime stat system as well in that same way.
Uh,
I also go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, exploration. I feel like the CIG will also give a pretty big role to those like jump points that just kind of pop up.
Oh, yeah, the
And
transients.
then
Yeah.
the transients that will be different routes, and I think that's kind of what they're currently thinking of making the main exploration gameplay. People finding those and then selling them for cheaper than the tax you have to pay to, or the toll you have to pay to go to another system.
And because they're temporary, they may reset every week or something like that. So you can only have
Or they
certain-
just disappear if people leave and don't keep them open.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, in some way. I agree. I think that'll happen. But at least initially, they're going to do something to keep it safe. But all right,
Yeah,
I think it was a good discussion on the future of Star Citizen in 2025. I think generally most of us are optimistic of what CIG is going to do. And I do think the one theme, if you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is that CIG is definitely going to be a heavy emphasis on content over features next year.
Yeah.
So I think that's the we kind of pulled out from. But thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. Like I said, this is the first time that I'm going to be uploading this to a new channel, a completely different channel, youtube.com/@the-captain's-table-podcast. So please do subscribe to us there if you're watching this live. And if you're watching this recorded, come on back to youtube.com/theastropub live to watch these live on Twitch. And you can also check us out at twitch.tv/theastropub to watch all of my content live. Make sure you check out HC Vertigo at twitch.tv/HC Vertigo. Check out Build and Play on various social media sites, and of course Qantas Starlines is the organization. If you're interested in that sort of transport gameplay. Thank you both for coming on. What's that?
Touring gameplay.
Touring gameplay. I love the idea of doing little lore tours, across the Stanton system and things like that. It's always fun. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.